Hey guys, welcome back to Tish with Flipside Mentorship. And today I've got a special guest, Miss Carrie Schusler, who is expert ninja level mama. If there, whatever the darkest black belt there is in parenthood, she would have it, okay? She fits the bill for so much criteria. She's been a foster mom. She has young ones. She's got older ones. She's got girls. She's got boys. She's got, was it 7 kids, 6 kids?
6 right now.
6. Yeah. Okay. She's got 6 kids, and her kids. Her kids, I've bragged about them in past episodes. Her kids are amazing. They're here to talk to you about what she's doing, just as an expert mama for some of us who be like, yes, ma'am, give me advice, please, please, please. So for this Mother's Day special, I just really want to honor this mama and then give advice for y'all. So are you ready?
Sure.
Why are setting boundaries with kids important?
So this is such a great question, and it made me really think about this. So thank you for asking. With kids, it's important to set these boundaries because we all have to learn about personal space, right? And if they don't learn that at home, where are they going to learn it?
Right.
And so home is the place to teach what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and very practical things, right? Like when mom and dad are in their bedroom, we knock on the door. Or like when mom is in the restroom, we don't have a whole conversation, right? Because we don't want them to go to their friend's house and have a whole conversation with their friend's mom while she's in the restroom, right? So we teach that stuff at home, and that's just really practical. And conversation, teaching our kids boundaries and conversation, like not interrupting, right? Not talking over each other. I have a lot of kids. So in my house, everyone wants to get in, right? And so we have to teach those things. So that's practical, but it's really important because we want them to be adults who don't interrupt and adults who don't talk over each other and let their spouse speak and be a good listener and all those things. Boundaries are important because if we don't set them, like between us and our kids, we can get really frustrated, right? So like, for example, with interrupting, that can make me really aggravated if my kids interrupt, and I can start to get like angry and yelling at them, right? But if I've taught them ahead of time, like, for example, I try to teach my kids to like just come stand next to me and kind of wait, right? If they want to talk to me. And then when there's a break in my conversation, I can turn to them and say, hey, what do you need? If I've set that up ahead of time, then it can be a calm interaction instead of me being like, oh my God, better than the yelling and the screaming. Yeah. So I try to come up with ways to just repeat the same stuff because kids learn through repetition. Another boundary we talked about was conversation. So one thing my kids like to do is like, say I'm in a room and I'm talking to this kid. Well, another kid in another room decided they want to talk to me. So before they even come in the room, they're already talking to me, right? Hey mom, can I go over to Colin's house? Hey mom, like they're not even in the room yet. So, I'll say to them, can you wait till you come in the room to start your conversation, please? And I say that every time. Can you wait till you come in the room to start your conversation, please? And eventually, like 20 times later, they wait to come in the room to start their conversation. But that repetitiveness, because all the kids are hearing me say that, not just that one kid. Right. I think that's helpful, and it cuts down on the screaming, but it sets that boundary. Like, I'm having a conversation with this person and you've crossed the line, and, and then I was talking about kind of that emotional, the emotional boundaries we have to set that I'm learning about, because I have a 18-year-old daughter. And so she's my oldest. And so I'm just learning with her. Right. And, it's easy when your kids are teenagers to get emotionally tied up with them. Their successes become your successes, their failures become your failures. You know, they win prom queen and you're like, oh, I did too, you know, like, or they have a breakup with a boyfriend and you can feel it just as deeply. But I think it's important to keep a healthy boundary there. But what I'm seeing is that has to start like way back, like when they're 11 or 12, you know, um, kind of establishing that. And so I'm trying to do that. I have an 11-year-old daughter, so I'm trying to do that with her. You know, so let's say like she doesn't get invited to a party and all these pictures go up on Instagram and she's super sad about that, right?
Right.
Well, I can jump in and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. They're jerks. And I've kind of like jumped where I don't really belong. And so I'm learning the best thing to do is to say, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That's really hard. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Because see, it happened to her. It didn't happen to me. And then teaching her how to handle disappointment. You know, well, hey, you know, when you invite people over, let's remember how this feels. Let's not
Mhm.
post all our pictures on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? So that emotional boundary, I think if we start young with them, then when they're 18 and something happens, you know, we've established that already. Like that happened to you, that didn't happen to me. And let me help you with it, but I'm not going to get drawn into it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. I guess, what if you're establishing something new? What if you did not have boundaries before and you're trying to put them in place? Like, then how do you kind of go about and say, hey, we're making a big change? Is it still consistency and repetition?
It really, really is, and probably more so, you
Mhm.
know, like, and just reminding everyone that we're making a change and you recognize it's totally new. Like, I'm known for making big, huge changes because I'm always trying to like be a better parent and try the next new thing, right? So I'll announce to them with the kids, we're doing something new.
Mhm.
And and here's why. That's like really important, you know. Like, here's the problem, kids. Like, you know, let's say you do have kids all in your room all night long, all over the floor, in the bed or whatever. You say, hey kids, listen, mommy's tired, daddy's tired, you guys aren't sleeping good. Um, and so that's a problem. So we're going to try to fix that. So you've kind of acknowledged the problem and then you share the solution. Um,
Mhm.
and then also it's really important if there's a mom and a dad to both be on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not dad over here going, well, that's your mom's idea, you know, or give mom a couple weeks, she'll forget about that. You know, no, he needs to be right there with her, supporting her, reinforcing the change, the boundary. That's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so what are some results that yielded from you making boundaries? Like, can you give us an example?
I'm still working on, but
Mhm.
I'm seeing as my kids get older, right? Is that kids learn patience from boundaries because really what a boundary is saying, um, like you don't always have access to me 24/7, right? Sometimes you don't, you know, and as a stay-at-home mom, that is really hard for me because I feel like they should always be able to have access to me. But here's the thing, in real life, we have to wait for people's attention sometimes. And so like if my kid needs me and I drop everything to do everything they need every second they need it, they're going to expect that when they leave my house. They're going to expect their teacher at school to do that, right? Or their friend's mom to do that or whatever. So as we teach these boundaries and say, you have to wait to talk to mom, or you can't come in my room tonight, or, you know, whatever it is, we're teaching them to be patient, to wait for what they want, to be courteous, right? And so I see that in my older ones now, you know, they're good in conversation. Like my son, Charlie, is a really good listener, you know, and that's not something every 16-year-old boy you could say about them. And um, so I hope that that's a result of like learning, like sometimes you have to wait to speak. You have to
Yeah.
let the other person talk, right? Um, and I think in general, we're just keeping the end in mind is like, I want my kids to be good citizens. I want them to be good students. I want them to be a good spouse. I want them to be a good coworker.
Mhm.
So these things they learn in my home, they really translate to that.
It does.
It does. It really does. So when my daughter went and worked at Chick-fil-A, I wondered how would she do? And of course she did awesome. Or when now she's a nanny, and so that's a whole thing. And so I feel like these lessons they learn at home, then they go into the real world, and those things are really important.
Yeah.
And lastly, a result I thought of is it just makes you a better friend. And I want my kids to be good friends. And I talked about Charlie being a great listener. But if you've never been taught to wait before you speak and to give people personal space, your kids aren't going to be a good friend. If you let your kid just destroy other people's property and just take their siblings' toys or just barge into people's rooms or whatever, they're going to do that with their friends. And their friends' moms are going to be like, yeah, we're not having him over again because he's a mess, right? And so it's not all about popularity. It's just about being courteous and being a good friend and being someone that other people want to be around. And you and I know, even as adults, there's some adults that we're around that you're like, oh gosh, because they talk about themselves the whole time, right? Or they're not good about personal space or whatever it is. And so it's like somebody probably never taught them that. And so that's our job as moms, is to teach them all those things.
Yeah. Well, I actually love that because it's kind of a combo. So you setting boundaries teaches them their boundaries, and then in the future how to set it. And please feel free to follow her at what should I plug?
I guess just Carrie Schusler on Instagram.
That's it. Oh!
Yeah.